Hello, second grade Smarties, and welcome to Wit and Wisdom Module 2, the American West, Lesson 33. So we only have 3 more lessons of this module. So to wrap up our time with learning about the American West, we are going to be doing an end of module writing task in 2 lessons. So to prepare us and get us ready for that, we are going to be practicing using an evidence organizer to compare events from 2 of our texts. So you are going to need a piece of paper and a pencil for this lesson. So go ahead and pause the video to get those ready because we will be creating our own evidence organizers again. All right, so we are trying to answer the pizza bite question today. How do the module texts build my knowledge about the early American West? So we have read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different books. We have read 8 texts about the early American West. And we are going to be answering this question today. Why is explaining differences between texts important? So we are going to be answering that question by creating an evidence organizer to help us organize points where we find similarities and differences. So we have read 8 different books. We started with reading The Buffalo Are Back. Then we read the informational text Plains Indians. Then we learned about Olivia Clark's journey through her diary on Journey of a Pioneer. We read The Legend of the Blue Bonnet, which talked about a young girl named She Who Is Alone that made a sacrifice to help her people. We read 2 different versions of The Legend of Johnny Appleseed, and we compared the differences in those texts. And we just finished our time reading John Henry, who is another American legend, and we just finished comparing the similarities and differences in those texts as well. So I want you to look at all of these texts. I want you to think about the time that we spent with these. What are 2 similarities that you see between 2 of these texts? So, for example, The Buffalo Are Back talked about the Native Americans' relationship with buffalo. The Plains Indians book talked about how the Plains Indians used every part of the buffalo to help them survive. So that is a similarity that I found between these 2 texts. I want you to think, what is something that is similar between Journey of a Pioneer and The Legend of the Blue Bonnet? What is something that is similar between those 2 texts? Tell me in the puzzle. So something that is similar between Journey of a Pioneer and The Legend of the Blue Bonnet is that both books, their main character was a young girl. In Journey of a Pioneer, our main character is Olivia Clark, who tells her story about traveling west on the Oregon Trail. In The Legend of the Blue Bonnet, the main character is She Who Is Alone, who makes a sacrifice to the great spirits to help her people have rain to grow crops again. So that is something that is similar between those 2 texts. The main character was a young girl. Maybe you came up with a different similarity between those texts. Another similarity between texts is that The Legend of the Blue Bonnet, the story of Johnny Appleseed, and John Henry are all examples of legends that tell about a real topic, but usually are told from a long time ago, and things change as it's told over time. Remember, those magical elements are included as the story is told over time. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to be making another evidence organizer because we are going to be comparing The Legend of the Blue Bonnet and The Buffalo Are Back. So we are going to make our evidence organizer right now. So I'm going to make myself a little bigger. There we go. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start by making a box for our introduction. So we have our introduction. So there's a box for our introduction. And if you see, our introduction gives us our sentence starter. So let's go ahead and write the sentence starter for the introduction. Go ahead and pause the video to complete the sentence starter for our introduction. All right, the next part is our topic statement. So our topic statement goes after our introduction. Okay, so you have your introduction, you have that sentence starter. Now you have your topic statement. Look at the topic statement that we are going to have a sentence starter for. Our sentence starter says there are differences in blank. So let's go ahead and get that sentence starter on there. There are differences in blank. Okay, and so then we move on to our 2 points. So we're going to need a bigger box for the 2 points. And remember, how we divide this is going to be a little funky. So we are going to have a section for point 1 and 2. Point 1, that'll be our first sentence for evidence, and point 2 will be our second sentence for evidence. Okay, do we see this? So right under our topic statement, we have a box for point 1 and point 2. So go ahead and pause the video to get this part of the box done. All right, and then we are going to make a line at the top, split it in half like this. Okay. And we're going to write Buffalo are back and Legend of the Blue Bonnet in these 2 smaller rectangles. So the buffalo, I'm just going to write buffalo. That's the amount of space that I have. And I'm going to write Legend of Blue Bonnet. Okay? All right, so this is what our evidence section is going to look like. So we're going to describe differences for point 1 and point 2. Point 1 for Buffalo are back and the Legend of the Blue Bonnet, and then our second point, we're going to find another thing to compare in the Buffalo are back and the Legend of the Blue Bonnet. What goes after our points? After we give our evidence, what is the last sentence that we have? A conclusion. So our last box is going to be our conclusion. And remember, our conclusion is going to be very similar to our topic statement. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to pause the video and make sure that you have your evidence organizer set up to where you can fill in the blanks. All right, and I am going to make sure to complete the introduction. All right, Smarties. So here's what we're going to do. You are going to use your evidence organizer while we are talking about the differences in how the buffalo are back and the Legend of the Blue Bonnet talk about droughts. Remember, in the Buffalo Are Back, we learned that a drought came after the Native Americans were pushed out of their land. And in the Legend of the Blue Bonnet, the problem was that there was a great drought. So we are going to be talking about the differences in the droughts. The differences in the droughts in both stories. So there is our topic statement. we are going to be talking about the differences in the droughts. So there is our topic statement. There are differences in the droughts in both stories. All right, let's look at the buffalo are back. So on this page, let's listen to what caused the plains to dry up. When the buffalo lived on the prairie, their sharp hooves helped rain reach deep into the earth, and the tough roots of the grass held in the wet. Now, no moisture remained in the soil. Farmers' crops withered and died. School started. In the 1930s, the plowed earth finally crumbled to dust. The wind eroded the land, picking up the dust and boiling it into terrifying black clouds. The clouds rained dirt. Barns, farms, houses, and towns were buried beneath dust. People coughed, choked, and grew ill. Many died. All right, so I want us to go back and think about what caused the plains to dry up. When the buffalo lived on the prairie, their sharp hooves helped rain reach deep into the earth, and the tough roots of the grass held in the wet. Now, no moisture remained in the soil. The farmers' crops withered and died. So, what caused the plains to dry up in the buffalo are back? What caused the plains to dry up? So, on your evidence organizer, you are going to tell me right here what caused the plains to dry up. What was missing? No buffalo to All right. So what was missing that kept the plains from growing? What hurt the farmlands? What was missing? The buffalo, right? The buffalo, when they were on the prairie, their sharp hooves reached deep into the earth to help rain get down. So what I said is there were no buffalo to help soil stay wet. So that is why the plains were dry. Let's look at the legend of the blue bonnet to figure out why the plains were dry in this story. The sun is setting, the runner called as he ran through the camp. The shaman is returning. The people gathered in a circle and the shaman spoke. I have heard the words of the great spirits, he said. The people have become selfish. For years they have taken from the earth without giving anything back. The great spirits say the people must sacrifice. We must make a burnt offering of the most valuable possession among us. The ashes of this offering shall then be scattered to the 4 points of the earth, the home of the winds. When the sacrifice is made, drought and famine will cease. Life will be restored to the earth and to the people. Okay, so what caused the drought in the legend of the blue bonnet? Why were the Comanche people not getting rain? I want you to write why they were not getting rain right here. Okay, so pause the video and write in that box why the Comanche people were not getting rain. All right, so the text told us that the great spirits were angry. Why were they angry? What had the Comanche people started to do? They started to become selfish. So why did the land dry up in the legend of the blue bonnet? The people became selfish and the great spirits were angry. So let's think about point number 1. We're talking about what caused the plains to dry up. And the buffalo are back. The plains dried up because there were no buffalo to help the soil stay healthy. In the legend of the blue bonnet, the plains dried up because the people became selfish and the great spirits were angry. For point 2, we're going to talk about what caused the plains to be good again. What caused the plains to be fertile again? Let's look at the buffalo are back. Thanks to Roosevelt, the orange calf in Montana romped with other calves and rolled in the dust. Her herd grew in numbers. Many were sent to national parks and wildlife refuges that had been established to start new herds. As the dust storms attacked farms and cities, the government worked to save the prairie. Farmers were taught to plant and grow crops in curves instead of straight lines. The contour plowing helped to prevent dirt from blowing away. Government workers planted trees with deep roots to hold moisture in the soil and break the wind. When the rain returned, farmers planted grass between their curving rows of corn to hold the soil in place. Crops flourished again. What caused crops to flourish again? What caused the prairie to be healthy again? You're going to pause the video and you are going to write what caused the crops in the prairie to flourish again right here under the buffalo are back. Okay, so pause the video. What caused the plains to be healthy again? All right, so I had to write kind of small. So think about what caused the plains to be healthy again. So remember, it said that the crops were planted in curved lines. They planted trees to break the wind, and they brought herds of buffalo back. Now we're going to see what is different in how the plains were healthy in the legend of the blue bonnet. When the people came out of their teepees, they could scarcely believe their eyes. They gathered on the hill with she who is alone to look at the miraculous sight. There was no doubt about it. The flowers were a sign of forgiveness from the Great Spirit. And as the people sang and danced their thanks to the Great Spirit, a warm rain began to fall and the land began to live again. From that day on, the little girl was known by another name, one who dearly loved her people. So remember in this story, she who is alone, what did she do? She made a sacrifice. So the sacrifice, so they had to make a sacrifice. And the rain was a sign of what? The great spirits forgave the people. Okay, so let's think about how these stories describe the droughts, okay? Remember, The Buffalo Are Back is a book that tells a story about real information. The Legend of the Blue Bonnet is a story that talks about history but has magical elements. So we are going to finish up this paragraph, okay? So we talked about in point 1, there are differences in the droughts in both stories. In point 1, we talked about what caused the plains to dry up. So in The Buffalo Are Back, we learned that there were no buffalo to help the soil stay wet. In The Legend of the Blue Bonnet, the people became selfish and the great spirits were angry. That is what caused the plains to dry up. So that there were differences in how we learned about the droughts. In point 2, we described the differences in how the plains became healthy again. So in The Buffalo Are Back, we learned that crops were planted in curved lines. Trees were planted and herds of buffalo were brought back. But in The Legend of the Blue Bonnet, We learned that the plains became healthy after she who is alone made her sacrifice, and the great spirits forgave the people. So I want you to pause the video, and I want you to make sure that you have your introduction, your topic statement, evidence for point 1 for the buffalo are back and legend of the blue bonnet, and evidence for point 2. All right, now we are going to put our evidence all together into a paragraph. So we are going to use our evidence organizer to help us complete this paragraph. So let's look at what we have. The legend of the blue bonnet is a legend, and the buffalo are back gives information about real events. But both books describe, what do they both describe? They both describe a drought. They both describe droughts. In real life, so in the buffalo are back, what caused the drought? Look at point 1. In real life, in the buffalo are back, what caused the droughts? Look at point 1 under the buffalo are back. Tell me in the Ed puzzle, what caused droughts in that book? So in the buffalo are back, in real life, the droughts were caused because there were no buffalo. But in the legend of the blue bonnet, what caused the drought? What caused the drought in the legend of the blue bonnet? Look at your evidence. What caused the drought? Tell me in the puzzle. But in the legend, the people were selfish and the great spirits were angry. Okay, so we compared how the droughts were caused. In real life, the droughts were caused because there were no buffalo. There were no buffalo. But in the legend, the people were selfish and the great spirits were angry. Now let's look at point 2. Point 2. How did the crops become healthy again and the buffalo are back? The drought ended when what happened to make the plains healthy again? And the buffalo are back. What made the plains healthy again? Tell me in the puzzle. So in real life, the drought ended when crops were planted in curves. And there were other things that made it healthy, but we're going to leave it at that. Now, how did the plains become healthy in the legend of the blue bonnet? Tell me in the puzzle. In the legend, the droughts ended when a sacrifice was made and the great spirits forgave the people. All right, so let's read our paragraph. Oh, and we have our conclusion. People started and solved droughts differently. So look at where you have your line for your conclusion. Okay, we are going to write the conclusion that we have at the bottom right here. So go ahead and write your conclusion. People started and ended. I put ended, but you can put solved. Droughts differently. That restates what our topic statement was. There are differences in the droughts in both stories. All right, so that is an example of a paragraph that we could write describing the differences of the droughts and the buffalo are back in the legend of the blue bonnet. Smarties, if you are in my class, I need you to send me a picture of your finished organizer. Okay, remember, we are doing this to help us figure out how to use the text to find similarities and differences about similar events. All right, Smarties, as always, keep that growth mindset. Good learners do hard things, and I will see you tomorrow with another writing lesson. Happy learning, Smarties.